So, Champ.ie are back after a couple of weeks off, and we are joined by the Golden Groom and commentator extraordinaire, Mr. Mike Vince, who I suppose, lads, we haven't been in touch for a couple of weeks, and I think Ronan Groome is planning more holidays.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, in Ireland, there's nothing else to do.
Staycations, where are you thinking, Ronan?
County Wexford, I believe. I've been to, where have I been? Down to County Clare for the first time. Spanish Point. Beautiful part of the world. And more planned as for the rest of the year as we go on, because we can't go anywhere else.
Anything strange and wonderful, Mr. Vince?
I love County Wexford. I'd love to be there with you. And Wexford Town is one of my favourite haunts. I mean, it's a wonderful place, and I went there to a wedding a few years ago in one of the twin churches. It's got to be right, hasn't it, that one of the two twin churches, which is the centre of Wexford, is on Bride Street.
Bride Street. Mike, you need to get yourself to Kilmore Quay the next time you're in Wexford, right down on the south coast of Ireland. Good news, lads, this week, of course, as we preview the Irish Champions weekend, but even better news, lads, 4 weeks until the start of the Jumps opener at Chepstow, which, Mike, is, I suppose that's the first meeting that I always look to for the kick start of the Jumps. Which are you more looking forward to, Irish Champions weekend or the Jumps returning?
Me, I mean, I love. I'm really sad that the restrictions mean I can't travel this weekend. I held on to my ticket and my hotel reservation as long as I possibly could. But for me, of course, the Jumps, I'm interested in Listowel later this month, and I'm also particularly interested in Limerick and the Munster National, courtesy of an animal called Cabaret Queen, of which I happen to own a share, and of course. Hopefully she might try and win the Munster National for a second year running, though. Whether I'll be allowed to fly in the country to call it again like I did last year, we can only wait and see. That's the unfortunate thing at the moment. No long-term planning of any sort. All
up in the air. Ahead, I suppose, of the first race we're going to preview on Irish Champions weekend, which is the Matron Stakes. And that's my phone, lads. Let's have a listen to Mike's interview with the great Johnny Murtagh, who I suppose ever nears that 35 winners for the season. And he saddles, of course, Know It All, 8-1 shot, and Galway winner as well, Champ.ie.
Yeah, she's very good. She ran very good in the Rothschild over in France. She was third. So the plan was always to come back to the Matron. She's fresh. She's well. She works in the morning. She's the best horse we had in the stable. Like, if I thought if we had a good horse this year, it was her. She ran well last year. Just got caught in a Group 3. So this year was going smooth for her. First run was nice. Won a Group 3 next time. So all guns blazing towards the Matron Stakes. She works tomorrow morning. Big workout for her. So hopefully everything go well. Scope clean. Blood's good. Work good. Ready to rock. And she's big, like she's a very big filly, good breeding. Sheik Fad owns her, very good sire who I didn't know much about, but he seems to be, one of the top stallions in Japan. And like what she did as a 2-year-old always was probably remarkable because she was so big. You knew she was going to be a better 3-year-old. Yeah, I think she's going there with a great chance. Now she has to improve. 7 to 10 pounds to be involved in the finish with all the the good fillies that's in it, and she's stepping up to a mile again. So she, if she can improve in a Group 1 mile, 7 to 10 pounds from where she is, I think she'll be fighting out the finish. To win a race on Champions Weekend is the aim. Doesn't matter what the race is. Every race is championship race, big auction sales race, even the listed race. The first race on Saturday. The listed fillies race, you could get a Guineas winner winning that. So for us to win any race Champions Weekend would be, it's one of the goals at the start. It's one of the goals 2 years ago, but it's the real goal there in the last number of months to see could we have a team, to see could we be competitive, and to see could we win one race Champions Weekend. I know how hard it is to rock up against them. I know how hard it is to bring horses that are after improving 20 pounds to go there and think that they're going to have to improve another 10. Can they? I don't know. I'm hopeful they can. The team is still in good form. The work is good. But it's, Ireland for me is, as a jockey, it was one of the hardest places to ride because the jockeys were brilliant. And as a trainer now, again, you just see the standard and the standard of the horses we have. Like the standard of the horses. When you're down the stable yard and you've seen the horses walking around, just getting saddled before the races, it's unbelievable. You could bring any of those top 12 trainers in Ireland, put them anywhere in the world, give them 100 horses, they would make a go of it.
Who's the biggest influence on Johnny Murtagh, the trainer?
Biggest influence on Johnny Murtagh, the trainer? Well, listen, I'm going to give you a few names who I worked for, who really rubbed off on me, like John Ox for all those years early. Rode for Michael Stout. Rode for Aidan O'Brien. Rode for a guy in Australia called John Sadler. So a mixture of all those, you know, a mixture of all those people. You'd like to be. I think every one of those trainers were absolutely, you know, top class trainers. And for me, when you get the good horses, they're the ones, you know, that you can rock up, you can win a Group 1, you can let them down, you can rock up. To win 4, 5 Group 1s in a season, that's a real test of a trainer. And people might say, yeah, but what about the 0 to 65 lad? That's a different test. But for me, the greats are able to, you know, get the good ones and just keep them on a level playing field all the time and turn up on the big day, guns blazing every day on the big day and win.
And obviously, listening to you, it looks as though you've probably got a stronger hand Saturday than Sunday. Probably wouldn't be an unfair statement. But what about Leopardstown? You rode it for long. It is a pretty fair track. How much luck do you need? I mean, particularly in a race like the Matron.
Yeah, listen, Leopardstown is probably 8 out of 10 times the best horse wins. You can be lucky, you can be unlucky. Whereas Curragh, 9 out of 10 times the best horse wins. Very fair, long straight. Luck, yeah, you need a bit of luck. Sometimes it can be tricky races around there, slow pace. But I think with those nowadays, the pace is going to be on. When you look at the field set up, the pace is going to be on. And listen, in Ireland, in the world, you could not get 2 better tracks than Leopardstown and the Curragh. They are as good as anywhere I've ridden. And it's always nice to test a bit, you know, like they're not, the jockeys are not like machines or, you know, they're not driving little cars, you know, they have to make those. Sometimes the jockey can make the difference. And I didn't always think that. I thought, sure, you're on the best horse, put him in a good spot, he's winning. So sometimes the jockey can make the difference. And that's not a bad thing either, is it?
And the Matron, you rode 3 winners. Nobody has trained and ridden a winner of it. Be nice to put Johnny Murtagh in the history books, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Well, listen, you know what? If it doesn't happen this year, it is going to happen, but I don't know when.
So, lads, thoughts on the 310 at Leopardstown? It's the first race we're going to preview, the Matron Stakes. It looks a hot renewal. Ronan, the one I was interested in was Will Buick is booked for Valerina Missalina, 12 to 1. We liked her early in the season. You could do worse, I think, than backing her each way. What was your, I suppose, thoughts? Did you do anything each way against, I suppose, the ones at the top of the market?
Yeah, I think you could do a lot worse than back her each way. I think it's that type of race, Barry, because it's much more open, obviously, than the Champion Stakes, which we'll talk about in a bit, where obviously Ghaiyyath is head and shoulders above everything else. Well, there's not really a superstar here. There's good fillies, of course, Fancy Blue and Peaceful, you know, 2 classic winners, but you wouldn't say that they're massively ahead of the rest here. And it's a much more open race than much more a better of a betting heat because it's an open race. The market's concentrated on the 2, Fancy Blue and Peaceful, and I'd be surprised now if Peaceful didn't go off favourite just on the basis of facing Fancy Blue again over a mile. Obviously, Peaceful came out on top on the Curragh. That was obviously the Irish 1000 Guineas, and then Fancy Blue beat Peaceful over in for the Prix de Diane in Chantilly. So that was over 10 furlongs, and Fancy Blue has gone on and won the Nassau over 10 furlongs. And even at the Curragh, she looked like she was, always, she was never near until she got to the line. She was making ground all the time. So you'd kind of favour Peaceful back at the mile, but we just listened to Johnny Murtagh there. And I'm a big fan of both of his fillies. I think they're both really progressive. No It All, obviously, third in the Rothschild. That was a big run, and she's coming back to course and distance. She won Derrenstown trial here. Champs Elysees is the one I'd probably come down on. I think she's been really progressive all season. Johnny was talking about her. She was meant to be sold out to America, and they didn't end up selling her, and they had to back off her a bit. And for that reason, he didn't really fancy her when she went to Galway. Thought she might need the run, but she went and bolted up there by 7 lengths. He dropped her off a bit then and gave her a bit of time, and one kind of warm-up run at Gowran, and she won really well there as well. I just think she's very progressive. It's her first time over a mile, but she stayed 7.5 furlongs at Gowran on heavy ground. So you'd like to think that she get it. Colin Keane is a great booking, and I think obviously Johnny Murtagh had a sensational season, and I think he's going to have a big weekend. He's lots of nice chances, and what a way to round off what's been a breakout year, I suppose, than land this Group 1. And I'd give him a big chance with both fillies, but I'd come down on Champs Elysees out of the two.
Mike Vince, thoughts on the Matron Stakes, and I suppose which of the two Murtagh fillies would you be favouring?
Well, it's fascinating that Kieran Fallon, of course, is now number 2 for Qatar. This is his first real high-profile ride for the Qatar team. Yeah, he won the July Cup, but not on one of theirs. Interesting, they're running Champs Elysees again so quickly, and slightly disappointing. There's no British challenger in this, so this stays at home. And I'm adding to that fascinating jockey bookings as well, with Declan McDonough riding New York Girl for Joseph and Billy Lee riding Wild Dreams. I just think that I will go for Peaceful, and I'll tell you why. I saw Fancy Blue win at Goodwood, and it's quite an undulating mile, and I called it. I thought she needed it. And I just think back over a mile with a short straight at Leopardstown. If you think about it, very different track to the Curragh. I think the conditions of the race might suit Peaceful better. But then again, I'm fascinated that Ryan Moore stays on Fantasy Blue. Peaceful for me, know it all each way, got every chance.
Brilliant stuff, Mike Vince. Valeria Messalina for me, lads. I think she did show a good attitude at Goodwin and was possibly, I suppose, unlucky not to get up that day against her. She's coming in here fresh as well. I think she's a good each way bet. Mike mentioned the track there. Magical has won the Champion Stakes last year. She goes in here again. Mike, myself and yourself have been banging on about Ghaiyyath, I suppose, all season. He's now the highest rated horse in training. Will Leopardstown suit him?
Yes. I'm sorry to say, and in fact, I talked to Edna Brown last week. I said there's Magical being unlucky, because if you think about it, she's chased home some of the very, very best. I think she's going to chase home Ghaiyyath again. And I'm sad because she is a marvellous horse. And of course, let's not forget that Aidan's got Japan, and he's also got Armory in the race. I'd dearly, dearly love to see Magical win it. But I have seen nothing in 4 runs this season to suggest anything other than Ghaiyyath is effectively bomb-proof. Got to give weight away to Magical, obviously, because of the sex allowance. Only Armory represents the 3-year-old division, who is nothing like good enough. Ghaiyyath is going to be 5 out of 5 in my book.
Yeah, I agree, Mike. His best price now is 8-13, actually, Ghaiyyath. Japan 9-2, Magical 9-2. Satas, of course, the French challenger, 13-2. Good to see, I suppose, him taking his chance. Colin Keane, interest in booking. Armory, 66-1. Leo the Fury is 66-1. Thoughts on this, Mike, or Ronan Groome? Would you concur?
Yeah, look, I wouldn't be taking on Ghaiyyath very quickly, to be honest. It's one of those races that you'd love to be going to Leopardstown to see, but sadly not this year. Look, he's 8-13. That's not a great price for a lot of people. Won't fancy that sort of going in at that sort of price. I think he'd probably start a bit shorter, like he could be 1-2 or 4-9. He's beaten Magical, quite comprehensively at York. So if you're nitpicking with Ghaiyyath, you might say that he's started his season quite early. He was in Dubai, I suppose, very early on in the year, and maybe just the way his running style, maybe it's going to catch up with him at some point. But until you actually see that, you can't really make that case. So they seem to have found a key to him this season anyway. He's obviously a lot more consistent, whereas seasons before he put up a top-class performance and then he'd disappoint. Now he's putting up all top-class performances, and I think they might have just found the key to him. Look, if you're looking for something else down the field, surprising Ryan Moore's on Japan, considering what you guys were saying about Magical. I'm a big fan of Magical as well. I'd love to see her win a race like this, but Shamie Heffernan's on her. They seem to have this ridiculous, well, not ridiculous, but they seem to have this outrageous belief in Japan and Mogul at Ballydoyle. They must show something amazing at home, and they just haven't got to the bottom of either of them yet.
Big boys as well. Go on.
Yeah, look, I wouldn't be surprised if he ran well. Japan. Sotsas is probably going to be the one who's the biggest danger. Jean-Claude Rouget obviously won this with Almanzor, and I think it was around 2016. And Sotsas has got very good form. Like, you know, you look at he won the Prix de Jockey Club. He beat Persian King. So if you allow the form boast of what Persian King did last week, that looks very good form. He was third in the Arc, remember, and I'd imagine Jean-Claude Rouget, having won this race before, has probably been targeting Sotsas at it here all year. So he's probably hoping Ghaiyyath wouldn't come over. But you're probably going to get a peak form Sotsas here, and I'd probably back him to chase Ghaiyyath home. But yeah, as I said, it's probably a race to watch rather than have a bet.
Yeah, just interesting what you said about Ghaiyyath. Obviously had that run in February in Maidan. But I thought his best performance actually was over a mile and 4. You might remember back at Newmarket. And I think he actually broke the track record, beating Anthony Van Dyke. But obviously has kind of grounded out then against Enable and then beat Magical as well. No reason why he can't, I suppose, do the same again. St. Ledger focus, guys. We're going to cover both St. Ledgers now. The first one, Mike, will cross the channel over to Doncaster, the English St. Ledger, where I suppose San Diego travels over, the Irish Derby winner. Ronan, actually, we'll come to you because I know you like one here.
Yeah, I like Galileo Chrome. I just think he's really progressive, Barry. Look, it's another open kind of Group 1, and it's interesting that Joseph has sent him over here because he could have went for the Irish Ledger. But I don't think that's the worst race this year, the Irish Ledger. I was just looking at it again there, and rather than go for that, you could take on 3-year-olds here instead. Look, Pile Driver and Santiago are going to head the market here, and I think you can pick holes in both of them. I'm not absolutely convinced that Pile Driver will stay. You know, I think they probably got the best form in the race, but I'm not convinced the 2.5 extra furlongs will suit him. Santiago, all his form is earlier in the season. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if out of all the kind of other market leaders, I wouldn't be surprised if he kind of wasn't able to show that form at this point now. It's a long time since he won the Queen's Vase at Ascot. So to come back here and win over a mile 6 at this point, I think would be a good performance. Yeah, look, Galileo Chrome, he's progressive. He's really doing all his improving in the last, month and a half or so. I thought he was really good at Leopardstown, and then only 2 weeks ago at Navan, I thought he was really good. He beat a good horse there, an Emperor of the Sun, and Red Kelly. Red Kelly's been progressive this summer. Gone from strength to strength. And Emperor of the Sun chased home Princess Zoe at Galway. I think that's really strong form. Galileo Chrome was 5 lengths too good then. And I think it's a big move from Joseph to send him over. And yeah, I just think he's the best option out of in what looks an open race.
One of the better ones, of course, by Australia. Mike, I echo everything that Ronan has just said about Galileo Chrome. Thought his best performance was at Leopardstown, and on his second last start. What would you be as bullish on one here? You're hardly going for the old rogue English king, are you?
No, but thank you for asking. I think Galileo Chrome has got every chance, and it's fascinating that Joseph is sending young Shane Cross across to ride it, which is certainly it's his first ride in a British classic, certainly, and I need to look up whether he's actually ridden in Britain before. And it's quite a race to come into the Ledger. I would take a chance against them here, and a horse that did me proud at Royal Ascot, and has done nothing wrong since, because I think he's lightly raced. Someone else who's never had a classic win in this country is Owen Burrows. And I liked Hookham. I thought he ran really nicely in the Jeffrey Freer. Yeah, it's a big step up from winning a handicap at Royal Ascot. But unlike some others, this is the only one race that he had has been in the Jeffrey Freer. I mean, let's look at them. We've got 3 in the race. Hookham, Pile Driver, Santiago, all won at Royal Ascot. Hookham's had less races than the others. And I think he will go very well at a half-decent price.
Very good, Mike. We'll stay with you and we'll come back over, of course.
Barry,
yeah.
Can I just mention one more? Sorry, before you go on. Sorry to interrupt you, but Sunchart is very interesting there and just deserves a mention for Andrew Slattery. They obviously had a chance to sell this horse earlier in the year, and Pat Garvey decided to roll the dice with him and keep him. And he probably hasn't had a lot of enjoyment out of him because of that, because obviously not being allowed on the course. But he's ran some really big races this season, and a huge form boost today, obviously when Pista won the May Hill, and that was a listed race in Leopardstown. He was over, and he was quite close to the pace that day. And I remember they went really fast, and Pista just came late, was held up, and came and just nailed them on the line. They've rolled the dice again and brought him over here. Andrew Slattery Jr. is going to ride him, and just be a nice story. And I wouldn't put anyone off him at a big price, 33-1. As I said, he has some nice form earlier in the season. He was second in the Ulster Derby. He didn't run too badly in the Irish Derby. And this mile and 6 could bring out the best of him. So I wouldn't put anyone off him at around 33-1.
Interesting you say that, actually, because I had thought that this horse might have been better on maybe softer ground, and just interesting that they decided to go here versus staying at home. I'm kind of a bit puzzled by that, because his best runs have been when there has been a slight bit of give in the ground. Was obviously 13 lengths behind Santiago, and then went on yielding ground to finish behind Red Kelly in a handicap. So yeah, was it the Ulster Derby? Ulster Derby, yeah, not Oaks. Yes. So Mike, we'll actually come back now to this side of the ocean for the Irish St. Leger. We have an English challenger here. I'm going to give you a quick show of betting. Favourite, of course. I'll pull it up now. Twilight Payment at 11-4. Fujera Prince 10-3. That's the English challenger. Sovereign 4-1. Master of Reality 7-1. Micromanage, I think he's interesting for the Master of Close Sutton. Search for a Song 10-1. Galileo Chrome, of course, probably won't go here. Neaf Road 16-1. Passion 16-1, and it's 20-1 bar. Mike, fancies?
Well, I think the thing they say about this race is, how much longer can we call this a classic? Obviously, we're talking before final decks. 17 entered, 3 of them are 3-year-olds, and one of them, Galileo Chrome, is clearly going to Doncaster, and he isn't going to turn up at the Curragh. So you've got a maximum of 2 3-year-olds, and obviously that is a massive shift. 3-year-old won it last year, and the smile on Chris Hayes' face when Search for a Song came home was one of the great sights of a very memorable Sunday, of course, which had been dominated by of
course, Michael Day as well.
The race. I think Joseph's got every chance of a double, to be honest. They like Twilight Payment as well. I don't think you can rule Pondus out either, a horse that's improved enormously. Fujera Prince at the age of 6 winning a classic. I shan't sleep tonight. And Willie Mullins' micromanage has been, he's had just the 1 run, finished 3rd. It's not a good race. I'm sorry. I don't like saying that about him. It is a Group 1 in name only, this. It's not a great race, and Sovereign's got to go close for Aidan. But for me, I will have Joseph, and I would go with Master of Reality if that's the one that turns out of the 2, because I don't know whether they'll run Master of Reality and Twilight Payments. But I think Joseph, whichever carries the first Lloyd Williams colours, will do for me.
Well, you're questioning the quality of the race, Mike. Well, yeah, Micromanage is actually priced up for the Supreme Novices Hurdle. So I think he's interested in Ronan. Back here, having had just the 1 run, as Mike said, after 470 days off the track, would he come into your radar?
He's interesting, Barry. Of course he is. He bolted up last season off a mark of 91. I remember Donnacha O'Brien rode him, and at the same time when he won, he got quotes for the Triumph Hurdle and quotes for the Derby, I think I remember. So there's not many horses who salvage that sort of reaction from the old bookies reps. Obviously, I think he's a horse who needs a bit of give in the ground, which he'll get this weekend. Obviously, we didn't see him till he returned maybe last month. He was in the Leather Trial and he ran quite well there. So if he comes on from that, you know, he needs to come on from that fitness-wise, and he probably needs to improve again. But he's lightly raced, and you know he has the run behind his back now. I wouldn't be surprised if he ran well at all. Look, it's not a great race. It's don't get me into the old classic debate. It diminishes the word classic if you call this a classic, because it's just not. It's the older horses. Look, you can call it a Group 1 because it is a Group 1. Fair enough, but it's not a classic race really. Yeah, look, Sovereign is interesting, Barry, to be honest. Look, we don't really know. Still hasn't proven if that Irish Derby win was a complete fluke or whatever, but I thought he ran okay behind Enable. You know, he's interesting enough. Twilight Payment is consistent and has probably elevated his form to a decent level this season, probably a bit better than he usually has been, and he'd probably top the market. It's not a race I'd be getting hugely excited about, to be honest with you, out of all the Group 1s this weekend. But if you push me for one, I'd probably go with Sovereign. I think he's interesting. I'd like to see how he goes here.
Interesting. That's moving from the staying races, as Ronan was saying, classics this weekend, onto the sprinters. And we're going to come on to Sunday again, which is the 310, the Flying Five. It's a Group 1. Over 5 furlongs for 3-year-olds and plus, and Dennis Hogan looked to have all the aces for this category early on in the season. Of course, the ill-fated Skeptical would have been probably lining up in this. He has Make a Challenge, who's 9-2. There's still 17 entered for this, lads. It was won last year by the filly Fairyland. 7-2 now, best price. I think the cut in the ground, it's scheduled to be yielding. I think, Mike, you might confirm that for Sunday, but that would probably suit him.
Yeah, it would suit him. But I actually think there is a quite strong British challenge for this. I think this could well go for export. I thought Ghaiyyath on the Saturday and this on the Sunday were the two most likely races to make their way back across the Irish Sea, because there are 3 with real chances. Ali, of course, for Simon and Ed Crisford, and then also you've got Kayamura, who ran the race of her life to finish second and make Batash work, let's remember, at York, and not many have been able to do that. And in addition to that, you've got Glass Slippers, and for me, Kevin Ryan does ever so well with his sprinters. Glass Slippers hasn't won this year, second to Batash and Goodwood, and I think he's a proven 5 furlong horse, and I rest my case on the basis of a spectacular demolition job in the Abbey at Longchamp, and with the ground possibly using, I think, Glass Slippers to beat the Irish, and this is probably the one that might just be heading up the M7 towards the motorway on Sunday night.
Yeah, Mike, you said it. Of course, the English challenge will be coming for Dennis Hogan here. 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th and 6th in the betting. All English trained. One actually, Ronan, that has been threatening. Mike mentioned Batash, but Equilateral is a talented sort. Surely to God there's a big one in him. There's a bit of money for him, 10-1 from 14s.
Yeah, maybe. Was he a Royal Ascot winner at some point?
He was second behind Batash at Royal Ascot. Through the yard. He's got to look. I think I agree with what you're saying. Both of you are looking at the British angle there. It's gone for export for 5 of the last 10 years, this race. And Group 1 sprinting, well, just sprinting in general, Ireland has probably never been really a strong point. And this is only a new Group 1. It's only been a Group 1 for the last 2 or 3 seasons. And we're still kind of trying to build that up, I suppose. Look, Make a Challenge would be the best story. We had, Barry, you spoke to Dennis Hogan about Skeptical early in the year, and obviously that's very sad what happened there. And but he still has Make a Challenge, and he's been mopping up most of the sprints around here. Soft kind of ground would suit him, and he's obviously got a good chance. I just think the English the level that the British horses bring
just kind of raises it a bit too much for Make a Challenge at their kind of combined level. And the one I kind of liked was A Ali. He obviously came over to the Curragh and beat Make a Challenge earlier in the season over the course and distance. I thought he ran okay behind Batash, and obviously Kaya Mora, who's got a reverse form there, but I think she has produced most of her good form at York. A Ali has obviously won at the Curragh, so he's got a good chance of reversing the form at least. And he was quite weak in the market before the non-torque, which was interesting, and still ran okay. When he was fourth, he wasn't beating a huge amount. So back at the Curragh, I'd give A Ali a decent chance here, I think.
Comes late as well, doesn't he, Ali? So there'll be plenty of pace on here. Maybe an opportunity for him to come from off the pace. 4:10, which is probably my favourite race of the weekend, lads. The Irish National Stakes, 7 furlongs for 2-year-olds. Battleground. Next year's Guineas winner, Ronan Groome?
Yeah, it could be. Definitely could be. Look, he's the first progeny you've found, and obviously his son of Warfront as well. He's got the blue blood breeding. He's done it on the track, and he's probably, we'd probably say he's the only real pretender this year for Doyle. They've not really got the 2-year-olds off the ground yet as a collective unit.
Some price, isn't he?
Yeah, he's kind of led the way. He won the Chesham and he won at Goodwood, same race Pinatubo won last season. Master of the Seas, I was very impressed with in Newmarket. I just thought that was a really smooth performance. But I just think this race that the bookmakers have priced it up on the pretense of it being a big superpower clash between Godolphin and Ballydoyle. You have Master of the Seas and Battleground, and that's how this race has played out in recent seasons. You look at last season.
The last 10 winners, Ronan Groome, include Power, Dawn Approach. Yeah. Obviously you have your Godolphin angle there. Gleneagles. Well, I don't think actually Dawn Approach was owned, was he, at that stage by Godolphin? But Gleneagles, Churchill, Air Force Blue, and Pinatubo. Aidan O'Brien has won 10 of the last 20.
Yeah, Quarto obviously won here as well, beat Anthony Van Dyke. So usually it ends up kind of some sort of battle between the two. But I think that means you're neglecting Lucky Vega, who, if you're just analysing this on form, has got the best form in the race off the back of his, really impressive performance to win the Phoenix. I think he'll stay the trip fine. He's by Loop de Vega, so the extra furlong will be fine. And if you're just analysing them what they've done, I thought he did the best time figure, he had the best rating in Europe after he won the Phoenix. People might crab that form. We haven't really seen much of those horses yet. A lot of indices might run here as well. I just thought that on the pure form angle, and I obviously completely respect Master of the Seas and Battleground given their superpower connections, but on what they've all done, I think Lucky Vega was probably the most underrated at the market. I think he's around the 3-1 mark now. So when declarations come true, if he was still behind Battleground Master of Season in the market, I'd be probably looking to have a play on him.
I thought it was only Jessica Harrington fillies you were after, Ronan Groome. Now, of course, going for the Lope de Vega colt. Mike Vince, Battleground. I think he was 14-1 after his Goodwood performance. 3-1, some price for this horse here, I think.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people will be talking about Master of the Seas because, of course, Appleby's going for 3 in a row after Quora and then the Pinatubo. But Pinatubo arrived at the Curragh last year with the mother and father of a reputation. And the vibes that I've picked up are not as strong about Master of the Seas. I mean, the fascinating thing for me, I mean, I put the Irish 2-year-old form in the bin marked far too difficult for a number of reasons. And particularly, you look at this race and then you look at the Taros, where Military Style was the winner and is in the field, and where Mason, who I can see running a big race for Ger Lions, was third. Charterhouse was fourth. He might turn up. And a horse that beat one home was Max Swinney for Jim Bolger, who then goes on and wins the debutant. So, I mean, what on earth do you make of that? And I think, the Bolger horses are in form at just the right time. This is a right head scratcher for me because I could make a case out for quite a few of them. Love to see Laws of Indices run well for Ken Conlon. He had a big press conference earlier in the week. He couldn't have been more helpful and more open. And I think the score is 1-1 if my memory's no, it's 2-1 to Lucky Vega, isn't it? Because he beat Lucky Vega in the Railway, because the Railway was run later than usual this year. He beat him in the Railway. then got turned over in the Phoenix, and I think they met, didn't they, in that very, very hot maiden that Lucky Vega won at Naas in about the second week of the season. I think if Max Swinney's any sort of each way price and Jim Bolger turns up, bearing in mind I find it hard to knock the debutant form. I think he could be too big, but this is a race to watch, not to bet on, because the form lines are so messy.
Interesting. By new approach as well, Mac Swinney. And look, lads, listen, I think Battleground looks seriously genuine. A tank of a horse. I was actually wondering, would he be better on softer ground? He's going to be yielding, but I just think 3-1. There's still 3-1 there. I think that's my actual bet of the weekend. But we'll come on to bets of the weekend in a couple of moments. First of all, I want to go around the grounds, just anywhere, I suppose. Any handicap selections, horses elsewhere. Mike Vince, start with you.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to the nap, I've got one for Doncaster on Saturday, not in the ledger, which I'm going to put up. You look at these handicaps, it's difficult, obviously, because we haven't seen the final decks for Sunday yet from the Curragh. But I think the way Moran ran in the Dundalk Premier Handicap, he's got top weight and wasn't beaten very far. They claimed off him that day. Now Shane Foley takes over from Danny Sheehy. I think he's got a huge chance of defying top weight in the Patingo. He's drawn in 8, which is fine. And that's in the second race at Leopardstown on Saturday.
So will we stick with you, Mike Vince, for... No, we won't. We'll go to Ronan Groome. Anywhere around the grounds?
Yeah, I think I was on the same call. I must have been on the same call as Mike was with Johnny Murtagh, and he was very interested when he started talking about Moran, what they've done with him this season, how they've trained them, trying to get him to settle, went for the 10 furlongs at Dundalk, and then now that he really fancies him coming back up and trip for that Patingo handicap. So yeah, I'd echo what Mike said there. The one handicap one I liked was Silver Spear for the aforementioned Andrew Slattery, who we were talking about with Sunchart earlier. This Silver Spear, I know from talking to Andrew during lockdown, he really, really likes her. He said she improved 2 stone over the winter, and they were talking about the Guineas at that stage. He was just thinking about what race they were going to go for. She had a little setback, I think, and it hasn't gone to plan, but she ran okay in a handicap at the Curragh, and then was third at Naas when she was just knocked about a bit in the last furlong. They obviously still think a lot about her because she's still in the Flying 5, which is obviously a Group 1, but she's a mark of 84. She's in the Bowl Lads Sprint Handicap in the first race at the Curragh on Sunday. If she shows up there, I think she's really interesting off that mark. Considering the regard that they hold her in, I think she's a full sister to Craig's Pipes, who was Andy Slattery's very good horse who won the Topaz Mile out in Galway. They just think an awful lot of her, I think, and she has the potential. If she has the potential to run in a race like the Flying 5, she should be winning a handicap off a mark of 84, albeit a very competitive one on Irish Champions Weekend. But I'll definitely be looking out for her.
There's one in the handicap, lads. It's actually the very last race on Sunday at the Curragh, the 550. It's a Premier Handicap for 3-year-olds and plus. The one I like here is Bashir. He still looks like he could win a race off a mark of 90. He's a 4-year-old, has the right type of profile for a race like this. I think his best performance of the season did come last time out, where he finished second. That was over a mile and 4. I think it could be interesting off that mark. It's an Aga Khan horse. Bashir, Dermot Weld in the last race. There's no prices obviously available for that just yet. Naps and MB. I might as well give you my nap, lads. Battleground 3-1. I think he could be head and shoulders above the rest of the 2-year-olds that we've seen both sides of the sea this year. And my NB, I'll go with Galileo Chrome. I do agree with Ronan, with everything Ronan had to say about him. I think he's being progressive, and I think he has to improve, but I think he's capable of it. Ronan Groome, nap and MB the weekend.
Yeah, Nap, I got to go with Galileo Chrome. I did another podcast with for my own publication. We did Don McLean and Rory Delargy on it, and they were very sweet. And just Galileo Chrome as well. I think he's a rock solid option for the Ledger. And next best, I'll go with Champers Elysees in the Matron on Leopardstown on Saturday.
Interesting. Mike Vince, your record on the Champ.ie podcast for Naps and MBs has been impeccable this season.
Exemplary.
Well, I will next best Moran in the 2:35 Saturday at Leopardstown. And the one other point I just want to make, I agree with everything Ronan said, is let's remember that Danny Sheehy is replaced by S. Foley, and he would hardly describe that as a negative. The Nap goes in the Park Stakes, 3 o'clock, Doncaster. It's not going to be a big price, but they wouldn't be sending Wichita to Donny. Frankie rides 4-8 in a Brown. It doesn't look a very strong race to me. I think it's got a massive winning opportunity. So Wichita, 3 o'clock, Donny is my Nap.
Brilliant stuff, lads. I suppose that concludes the Champ.ie podcast ahead of Irish Champions Weekend. Just 4 weeks now until the jump season kicks off. And I suppose we'll be building up to that on the channel. Make sure to like, subscribe, and I suppose interact. Let us know what you think ahead of the weekend. Any plans for the weekend? Ronan Groome, when are they going to open the pubs?
What, 2 weeks hopefully? What did they say? 21st? I went for a pint last week and booked a pub where the pub that we always go to have combined with the restaurant beside them to serve food, and it was absolute heaven. Now I have to say, just in there for an hour and a half, 4 or 5 pints of Smittix. It's the simple things in life, really. You don't appreciate it till it's gone.
Plenty of people this side of the border have been crossing because up the north, Mike, the pubs are open. But any plans for the weekend for Mike Vince? You're calling a couple of German races, I think.
I am doing a betting shop in the next couple of days. SIS has shown Baden both Friday and Saturday. Mark Johnston got runners in the 2 feature group races, but both days. Franny Norton is flying out. I'd love to see how Franny Norton gets on with the Germans. Could be very entertaining. But of course, they've got an amateur race with a 63-year-old. Kevin Woodburn is their leading amateur. So I've got, 27 races to call over 2 days. So wish me luck. And then hopefully I'll get to watch Sunday, sadly, from my home rather than being at the Curragh. But if you can't go to the pub, then at least you can bring something home, open it, turn on the telly and enjoy seeing Ronan Groome tip you 7 winners. In my dreams.
Well, we have a nickname for Ronan Groome. I think we'll now start calling you Mike the Kraut Vince.
Well, normally you're used to listening to me saying the hair is running. It's a different type of hair this time.
Well, listen, lads, have a great weekend, and we shall be talking to you very, very soon, and on the Champ.ie podcast.